we are going to spend our evening tonight, about 30 minutes, with Matt Kapszukiewicz, who is a people leader for PricewaterhouseCoopers, or PwC. Matt is a graduate of our Massachusetts Alpha chapter at UMass Amherst and is currently the AVC president for that chapter. In his role as a people leader for PwC, he works with executives and managers on how to get the most out of their employees, their teams. He is a mentor and an advocate for the talent that makes up PwC, one of the leading accounting and consulting firms in the country. Matt's a dedicated volunteer to SIGEP. As I said, he's AVC president at Massachusetts Alpha. He's a distinguished alumnus award recipient and gives his time to SIGEP staff by providing professional development to the staff on an annual basis. Matt really cares about getting the most out of people. He expects the most out of people. And I'm really excited for you to spend a little time with Matt. So with that, I'll kick it over to him to share with you some of his expertise and stories and tips. Then we'll open it up to question and answer. After that, you'll move into your cohorts, small groups, where you'll get to discuss the ins and outs of the Vice President of Member Development. So Matt, you can take it away.
All right, sorry there, I had to hit the unmute button. That's pretty common these days though. Thanks, Ben, and welcome, brothers. I'm excited to be here, because like Ben said, development is a passion of mine and has been a part of my life for going on 25, 30 years now. A quick intro to build on that. I grew up in southeastern Connecticut, and I was a first-generation college student. So that may fuel a little bit of my passion around helping people optimize their lives and their experience. And I like I said, being a first-generation college student, my parents' only advice for me was, go to college. College guys get good jobs. And it was through SIGEP that I found the development that I needed to grow sort of professionally outside the classroom to get ready for what was next. And without that, without the mentorship, without the development opportunities at SIGEP, I don't know that I would have been quite as well prepared for life after college. So following my time in the chapter, where I was an officer for a couple of years, I went and worked for the fraternity, and then went from there to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers, which, Ben, it is one of the, if not the best in the country, but you forgot globally as well. We're an organization of over 200,000 people, mostly college graduates too. We're one of the largest, if not the largest, employer of college graduates in the world, between audit, tax, and consulting, with 55,000 people in the U.S. and over 220,000 globally. So we hire, as many as the top couple of companies in the country. So for the last 25 years, my career has taken me from Washington, D.C. to Houston, Texas, to London, to New York, and now I'm out here in the Midwest. I've worked, across teams globally. Spent 5 years living in Europe, working in the Middle East, Asia, just all over the world, which has been amazing. And again, I'm not sure I would have gotten there without the development I had through SIGEP. And what's neat about the organization I come from is we don't produce any product other than people. So our product is people. We don't have something that rolls off of a manufacturing line that you can buy in a store per se. So we're really a learning organization, and we've been recognized by Training Magazine as, we're actually in their Hall of Fame. If you want to fact check me, you can Google PwC Training Hall of Fame, and you'll see that we're in there for our development of people. And I spend a lot of my time facilitating leadership development courses, courses that involve values and what our employees or what you value, helping people with goal setting, communications, helping them to become a better coach and mentor, conflict management, negotiation, et cetera. A lot of soft skill courses that our leaders need to move forward in their career. And a big chunk of my career now is spent, like Ben shared, around the coaching and mentoring. I think you have, one of the more exciting roles, especially given this pandemic, there's an incredible opportunity for you as the VP of Member Development to make this SIGEP experience so valuable and so impactful on the other members in your chapter. You know, you've often heard that statistic, right? 90% or 80% of the learning happens outside of the classroom. And now, you know, in some cases, 100% is happening outside of the physical classroom, unfortunately. But, you know, it's the stuff that you guys are doing that are preparing your fellow chapter members for leadership roles in your chapter. And then also beyond that, again, getting them ready for their professional careers. You know, and what I saw coming out of our chapter, you know, here I was in an undergraduate chapter with guys, you know, I'd say at least half of them were like me, you know, first generation college students, or others that you just wondered, what are they going to do with their lives after they graduate, right? I'm curious what they'll become. And today I look back on some of my peers, you know, one owns a professional sports team. One, you know, several are business owners. Several have early retired. They're just in, you know, doing everything from finance to medical, you know, the medical field to, you know, investing, et cetera, all over the gamut. And again, you know, through your role, it helped prepare them for those opportunities. You know, comparison too, you know, a neat thing about the role that you have is what you're doing is very similar to what is done in corporate America, right? So there's a lot of similarities between VP of Member Development and development programs that you're putting on and how, you know, corporations are set up. You've got, you know, your technical skills, right, that you have to learn to do a job. So I would equate that to, you know, the classroom learning, the classes that you're taking, right, to become an expert in your field. And then you have the soft skills training, or the other training, which is where I think SIGEP and your role really comes into play and can help these guys differentiate themselves and grow beyond what other undergraduates are getting. You know, we have, and many corporations have, you know, this continuous learning, right, that you're learning on the job. And then maybe there's a milestone event that happens, like a promotion or a promotion with a milestone attached to it, which I think is like what you're trying to achieve, right? Someone completes the Sigma, you know, the Sigma phase of their development and then goes through that rite of passage, and then they move on to the next one, and then there's a rite of passage. So you continue to have these milestone events. So you're going to see these similarities when you go out into the professional world, with the corporate world, and you're going to, you know, it's probably going to click for you, and you're going to understand what some of that is about. And then, you know, leveraging learning through different groups too. Besides your assigned role in an organization, you know, I find that I'm able to develop people indirectly by having them involved in things, you know, like our corporate responsibility program, right? Which is a fancy way of maybe saying community service and philanthropy, which you have in your chapter. Having them involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Having them involved in, you know, sports and intramural sports, as well as social functions that connect employees together. So all of these things are happening in your chapter, and you all play a very big role, you know, in the development of people. I thought maybe I'd share too, just a couple of quick stories that, you know, highlight how important development is, or, you know, how you might be able to impact some development. I'll start maybe with maybe share just some corporate ones. You know, one is about changing the environment for people. You know, you might find someone in the chapter who is, you know, in a particular role, or, you know, is maybe not performing, you know, at their peak performance level, but finding a different opportunity for them, or finding something that taps into their skill set, changing their environment can make, you know, an incredible difference in terms of their output and their growth. And I've seen that happen with our employees, where, you know, a particular task or assignment isn't developing them to the extent that we could, but we give them an opportunity to do something else, and it grows them. So if you have people on your committees or on different committees that maybe need to do something different with their development in order to grow, keep an eye out for that. Also, not writing people off too. Sometimes you'll have, you know, I had an employee who, you know, was struggling on a particular team, and the chemistry just wasn't right to make that team function. And she was, you know, moved on to another engagement, And here we are today, a dozen years later, and she's a partner in our firm, a leader in our firm who has done some tremendous things. And it was just the chemistry of that team that wasn't conducive to that individual's success. And then, finding people that have, are able to be flexible and mentor others, and to, go with the flow of what's changing in the internal and the external environment. And that's something I think you, as a VP of member development, can impact. Courses, I'm sure you guys, in addition to, in addition to probably what's in the SIGEP manual, and maybe some of these are, you're probably focused on bringing in experts either from campus or from your alumni ranks to address and help with academic success, to deal with healthy relationships, to help with professional development, whether that be resume writing or interviewing skills or just learning about an industry. And that's another good thing to do too, is, no matter what you end up doing professionally after this, it's really helpful to have a knowledge base that's a bit broader than, your slice of the world, right? So it makes you more interesting and more knowledgeable. Physical health, mental health, financial literacy, nutrition, sexual health. Those are all things that I wrote down as, as opportunities, as I discussed with our undergraduates at my chapter at UMass, as learning opportunities and things that you could put in place. So, I think, Ben, you'd said to me, tips to get the most out of people. Let me wrap up my opening remarks here with that and then go to questions. But if I were sitting in your shoes, so I'll just go into kind of recommendation mode, because I don't know how many people we have on the call and don't want to necessarily open up the mic to complete chaos. But I say first, engage guys from the chapter in the process, right? I may think I know everything and I've got this, great idea and list of things to do, but maybe take the temperature of the audience and survey, survey in the casual sense, ask them, what would they like on the agenda for the semester? What would help them in terms of their development, and get that feedback and take that in. Some of it, I'm sure you'll be able to do, and some of it might be a little hard to implement. So when you get that information, then, maybe in your role, you don't have to do it all. Delegate and put them in charge then. Maybe put them in charge of, or find someone who's passionate about that and put them in charge of bringing that piece to life. And your job, I really see, like I always see my job as an enabler. Your job is to enable them and support them and make them successful. So you sit here at the top, right? Helping set the strategy and the vision. And then you get the ideas from them, and you empower them and enable them to execute against it. And then don't forget the always important piece of recognizing them for their contributions, right? Be good with your praise and your sharing of the success. The other thing I think about is, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, but is leveraging all of the resources that are at your disposal, right? So don't forget about, guys maybe that you have in the chapter that have an expertise, alumni that are out there in our alumni ranks, all of the communities on campus, whether that be, faculty and professors, whether that be public safety, whether that be the health services, or other student organizations that are on campus that you can bring into the fold and, indirectly introduce to SIGEP. And I think I mentioned that, the broader community too, maybe off campus as well. So those, I think those would be my tips for getting the most out of people, is really engaging them in that process and being flexible and empowering them, and recognizing them. So Ben, I'll pause there because I'm not sure if I'm on track for you or not.
Yeah, you're spot on. We'll open it up to some questions. We already have one from Joshua at Mizzou. You mentioned the importance of engaging. How can you get people to actually engage and provide input? Seems like Joshua's issue is that he rarely gets responses when asking for input or recommendations, like, "Hey guys, how do you want to develop?" and crickets. So what would your advice be there?
Yeah. So let's go to the chat right now, and let me ask you guys, if you could implement one thing in the chapter that would make your experience better, or what is the one thing that we did last semester or last year that is that was, the best experience you had at SIGEP? Could you type that in the chat for me? So let's get a half, I was gonna say half dozen. Let's get a couple dozen. Stop playing Fortnite and go to the chat. What was the best thing or thing that would make your experience better this semester from a development standpoint, or the best thing that you've had in your experiences to get in terms of development? Here we go. So we got professional development, mock interviews, LinkedIn help, resume help. What else? David, Ray, Thomas, Brian, James. Being able to spend more time with my brothers, either personally or virtually. Hard to do, but virtually getting better. I think being put in a position to lead taught me to listen to people. All right, we got some good ones flying in here. So Joshua, does this sort of answer your question? What I was trying to do there is, in parallel, mirror what, an opportunity for you is asking that question, right? The guys, are kind of non-responsive when we ask him, give them an out, I guess, and say, hey guys, give me feedback, right? I asked you a really specific question. Tell me one thing that made last year or your SIGEP experience really meaningful, or what would you like implemented this year? And here the ideas are coming. So that's how I would go about it. And, I let it sit for a bit, right? And you might have to do that in a chapter meeting, right? Guys, this is the interactive portion. Let's talk about this for a second. Is that helpful? Couple nods.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And we've got, hopefully, you guys can download this list, Ben, or whatever, get this out too. This might have some good ideas in here. I couldn't keep up with all of them.
Yeah. Awesome stuff, guys. And continue to use the chat for any questions. I saw a question come up. Yeah, we lost one, but I copied it. I don't know who asked it though, because it's far up there. But one of the things that I know a lot of VPMDs want out of their experience is an opportunity for reflection. Allow guys the opportunity to really reflect on their development. What would be your advice to get members to really open themselves up to reflecting about the development that they do?
Yeah, I think I saw that one too, and that it said something about without feeling cornered. So is there sort of an insecurity maybe there, or something like that, right? So the question I like to ask people is, when you think about your performance, if you could have made it 5% better, what would you have done differently, or what would you have done? So I'm not saying that you're terrible, right? I'm not saying that you did a terrible job. I'm not saying that you have to improve, but I'm asking you, like, if we could have made it like 5% better, what would that look like? Who asked that question? You maybe come off the mute and see if that's where you were going, if Ben and I got this right.
I want guys to not feel like I'm attacking their ego when I'm asking, when I'm asking them to do some self-reflection. And I think that's a good question to ask. That's exactly what I wanted. If there's more, I'd be glad to listen.
Yeah, Thomas, University of Houston, go Cougars. Spent a lot of time down there. Yeah, I think if you tee it up too and say, this is going to be part of our process, right? You joined SIGEP, so hopefully you're trying to get better, right? You're surrounding yourself with great guys, an organization that has programming that makes you better, that has development that makes you better. And part of that is, right, sitting and reflecting. All the greats did it. You can look back over history and the people who kept journals and those, the monks who go off, into the mountains for days, right, and meditate.
You think Tom Brady journaled or reflected a bit on those 3 interceptions that almost cost him that ride to the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you raise a great question about you highlight a really important part of life and living and learning, right? Is for us to sit back and reflect on, am I where I want to be? And if not, what in my control can I influence to get me closer to where I want to be? And so I love I think it's less, less threatening to ask something like, if you could improve by 5%, if we were to make this even better, what would that look like? We had a great event tonight. Give me some feedback. It'd be even better if, and finish that sentence, right? Something like that.
So Matt, Max from Drake asks, how can you increase both buy-in and attendance from chapter members, maybe at a chapter meeting or in development meetings? And I'll add another piece to that question, because I think that the hard thing that these officers are running into is that they're new officers and they're dealing with members who have been a part of the chapter longer than they've been officers. So as it relates to getting people to engage or show up to meetings or things like that, how would you recommend resetting expectations as a new leader with a group that is maybe even more experienced than you are?
Yeah. So, I think there's a couple of things you could try or experiment with. And, Ben, we might crowdsource here in a second and ask guys for their input. So if there's a question you want to copy real quick before we blow up the chat, I'm giving you a warning.
Sounds good.
But I would, a couple of things I would do here, Max. One, again, it's sort of like what we just talked about is getting some, getting some feedback from the guys around what they liked, or looking at things that were, highly attended and getting at the root cause of why, right? Like, was it, why did guys show up for this? What made it an attractive event or got them engaged? And then again, source from them, like, what is it that makes your chapter meetings or your events fun? Like, what makes you come to them? So in the chat, again, let's do that, and I'll comment some more as you guys are commenting. But if you think about your best chapter meeting or your best event, at SIGEP where lots of guys showed up, what were some of the components? Maybe what was that event, and what were some of the components of that event that made it so engaging or sticky, or got guys to show up? So I'd like everybody to comment on what are some of the fun things. And I think I'm probably tipping my hand there. I think a chapter meeting has to have a bit of business. It has to have a bit of fun. You go there to like any meeting, you want to be informed. You want to walk away having gotten something out of it, usually, or you want to yourself go there to share, right? So looks like we've got some different ideas coming in here, which is great, and we can copy that down. But I forget who asked that question. Max asked that question. Are we on the right track here as guys are chiming in with different ideas and thoughts?
I mean, my question was more about like the business side of SIGEP. I mean, we've already done implemented a lot of like small clubs into our chapter.
Yep.
Whiskey nights for guys who can is something we do, or just book club, financial literacy and stuff like that. But I'm more so talking about like getting guys to come to their tracker meetings and chapter, like the things that they might not necessarily seem or deem to be fun.
Okay. So I guess, I would think about what would make it fun, right? That doesn't make it feel like, this is an exercise where I have to go. It's like a check-in that's, not engaging and not fun. And how do we, spice that up, so to speak? And also, is there an accountability factor too? Can you pair guys up? Can you create a reward system? Can you, have them hold each other accountable? Can you, again, engage them and get a couple of them to lead different portions of it, right? Like, hey, the kickoff, we're going to start with a fun activity, and Ben's going to lead that fun activity. And then, taking us through the agenda is going to be, Matt. And then we're going to have recognition of, brother of the week, and that's going to be Drew. And then, maybe those are some fun ways, like things like that, where you engage a handful of the guys. to, to participate and bring ideas too. Ask them what would make it better. Is anyone out there, anything in the chat you've seen that is particularly good or helpful or you want to share? And Max, I'm having not been there or done a deep dive on what's going on, right? Like what's the feedback been? Like, I'd peel back some layers if it was you and me one-on-one talking about it a bit more. But we're trying to hit this, quickly. So I'm curious if it's, if we're getting close to being helpful here.
Yeah, that is. Thank you.
Okay.
Louisville is hyping up every chapter meeting. So there you go. Bring the hype and the people will come. Looks like David shared. So Matt, looks like we have gone through all of our questions. I will give you the floor for any final thoughts, and then the vice presidents of member development will go into their cohorts.
Perfect. Yeah, and thanks for having me, Ben. Let me say this too. I'll hit it again, that you guys are in such a unique position in this role, especially during this time. If we can be selfish for a moment, for your own development, if you can figure out a way as to how to get good at motivating the guys in your chapter to participate in the environment that we're in, whether that's virtually or in person or both, think about the story that you'll have to tell when you're in the interview room. And when, retention, motivation, mental health, all of these things are on the minds of corporate leadership, of managers and companies, and you'll already have a foundation and a skill set that you've built for yourself through this role as a VP of member development. So that's kind of the selfish opportunity for you, on top of the fact that you can really have a tremendous impact on the trajectory of the guys in your chapter and what comes next for them, whether that be, they're going to run for an office in the chapter next year, or 10 years down the line, 10 years from now, they're leading an organization or a team somewhere. I have no doubt they're going to look back and say, hey, I've learned some of these skills from SIGEP. So thank you for what you guys are doing. I hope you're, excited about this role, and you'll, reflect on it and take the challenge, and have a lot of fun with it at the end.